what's the point of going to class? Maybe you turn up to all your classes in person this semester, or maybe you skipped all of them and only watched the lecture videos online later. Whatever you tried, did it work? Did you feel prepared heading into your final exam? Was it a good use of your time, or do you feel like there was wasted opportunity? Odds are you did a little worse than you thought. Before you wipe the slate clean, it's worth pausing for an extra moment to take note of what worked and did it work for you to do a study autopsy. This is another entry in our Tips Digest series where we go back through the archives to explore topics in more detail. If you didn't have time to watch this video in full, the main point of turning up to class is actually not anything to do with the class itself. It's about the ancillary indirect benefits of showing up on the day again and again over time. Establishing good habits, time management skills, forming connections with your peers and teachers, and developing the soft skills that are crucial for finding a job. There it is, video over. If you want to stick around though, I'm going to dive a little deeper. To truly understand the value of coming to class, we need to go back to a time when there was no other option but to come to class. Back to the 1990s. The lecture is the oldest tradition of university teaching that has stood the test of time. How this worked in the early 1990s, lecture theaters and teaching spaces were not filled with tech, mostly just a blackboard and chalk or whiteboards and markers. Classes weren't recorded. Nothing is available before class or after class other than textbooks. If you didn't show up to class on the day, you had no chance. If you're sick, or your children are sick, or you have to work to pay the bills, nobody cared. You just had to figure it out. All of that sounds bad for students, right? The teacher had all the power and maybe too much control. If you didn't know the answer to a question, either your notes weren't good enough or you weren't listening closely enough. Practice problems or past exams, online worksheets, there was none of this, so there wasn't much transparency around what or how you would be assessed or examined. I'm sure that all sounded terrible, and I promise you this isn't some type of back in my day boomer complaint about millennials. The students who did persist in that system though, and stuck it out through the process, learned some really valuable skills. First of all, the fact that everyone had to physically attend every class to pass brought a sense of collective belonging, even if that's in the form of gallows humor or mild shared trauma. The sense of isolation wasn't as pervasive. You know you're not alone because there are always people around whether you liked it or not. It forced all sorts of social situations and interactions around you, and over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, you're forced to develop rapport with your peers, a sense of identity and how you represented yourself to different people, and a set of communication skills that are your bread and butter in applying for jobs and navigating selection criteria and job interviews. Also, under these circumstances, students have to develop amazing note-taking and information processing skills, listening to someone talk and reacting in real time to both document what they've said and filter out the most important details. What a valuable skill for learning and your career overall. We're all drowning information overload, and having the ability to pass out the signal from the noise is super important. No one is naturally great at this, but back then you had multiple years of university to hone these skills as part of your survival as a student. Okay, I know what you're thinking. If all of that was so great, then why did everything move online? Simply because this type of learning wasn't very inviting and limited a lot of people's access to further or higher education. If you're supporting a family, a single parent, working 2 jobs, turning up to every class might be a luxury you literally can't afford. Like anything, if there is a demand in the market, there will be a supply to meet it. And the rise of services such as Echo 360 and Kaltura that installed a box in every lecture theater which automatically recorded and uploaded every single lecture to the web was irresistible to a lot of people. These lecture capture systems automatically recorded a live feed of a computer screen, audio coming from a microphone in the room. Overnight, this seemed to make attending classes pointless. You could watch the video afterwards and hear everything that the teacher wanted you to know for that day. If you don't attend any of your classes, you need to watch all of these lecture recordings at home by yourself. These recordings are not Hollywood productions, and teachers were not designing their classes with this format in mind. They could very well spend the whole class talking about a topic without using many slides, if any slides at all, or drawing things in the room that aren't captured on video. Having to sit through hours and hours of content designed for someone else is very demotivating, and odds are you will simply not keep up with this independent self-directed learning. There's a really good chance your grades will suffer as well. I'm sure many of you are doing great in your exams only by watching lecture recordings, so this might sound like a bit of an empty threat. Is there actually any evidence for this? So naturally, there have been a number of studies on this. Osten et al. In 2011 found that lower achieving students were more likely to watch lecture recordings than higher achieving students. Fay et al. In 2013 showed that teachers and some students mostly view these recordings as backup, supplemental, optional learning materials that shouldn't be your primary way of interacting with the course. Those studies are a little old now, and you can find a more recent review done by Banerjee in 2021. In theory, lecture recordings should be more effective for learning than attending a class in person. They're faster to watch, they're captioned for clarity, you can watch them multiple times and feed that information into note-taking apps or flashcard apps to use active recall and spaced repetition techniques. The main takeaway though from the more recent research into this area in those previous papers is that for most students, the potential downsides outweigh the benefits of only watching lecture recordings. Students need to be told upfront about when and where lecture recordings can be helpful, and indeed what the risks are for not turning up to class for a whole semester. If you miss a class, not a big deal. You can use the recordings, but if you only watch recordings, then you're putting yourself in an unnecessarily risky position as it relates to your motivation, isolation, mental health, and of course, your grades. Your GPA is just one part of the university experience. Developing communication skills and a professional network is just as important for finding a job. And sadly, you can't do this by yourself at home. So at the end of the day, should you turn up to class? Unless your teachers make attendance marked and compulsory, it's really up to you. You do need to make an informed decision though, one way or another. If you choose to turn up to class, you're doing this to enjoy a campus-based experience, meet new people, and develop social and communication soft skills that will set you up down the track. It may take time away from your family, care duties, or the opportunity to do some part-time work, and really it might not even improve your grades dramatically. But remember, your GPA alone isn't going to be what lands you the job or the job after the job. If you choose to only watch lecture recordings at home alone, don't delude yourself into thinking there's no cost in doing this. Know that you're making the conscious choice to optimize for exam performance and grades. And that's assuming you have the motivation to keep up to date on all the videos and learning by yourself. Now, this is not optimizing for other parts of the learning experience, so I hope that you'll have a mechanism to compensate for this in other ways. Joining clubs and societies, developing work experience opportunities relevant to your area of study, or at the very least using online discussion boards or forums, but not doing so anonymously because your name needs to be out there to engage with other students in an authentic way. Again, now you have the benefit of hindsight, and it's time to challenge your preconceived ideas about how you learn best. Check your grades and exam results and double check how many of these classes you actually attended in person versus watched online at a later date. Study autopsies are not particularly fun, but an important part of the process to develop as lifelong learners. That's it for now. I'm Jack Wayne. Hope to see you next time.